31% of all greenhouse gas emissions, if you listen to the scientists, come from the making of stuff. And that includes electric vehicles and solar and wind and hydro and all the other things that you need to build out green. But from the factory, and steel and cement, by the way, the nasties, so it's over there. But IT sits in the making of stuff, which is the largest slice of greenhouse gas emissions. So if it's true that 31% of all greenhouse gas emissions comes from the factories, the making of stuff, then reducing that is the biggest impact that as a society we can make. Now, the circular economy is at the centre of helping that reduction, because we're taking products that have already been made and extending that life, being regenerative and zeroing out waste.
You are listening to Sustainability Success, a series from The Standard Show, the podcast that brings you the stories behind the standards.
Hello, this is Matthew Childs, and welcome to Sustainability Success, a series from The Standard Show, a series which brings you stories of how organisations are using standards on their journeys to meet their sustainability goals. Now, sustainability has never been more important, but at the same time, people are more cynical than ever before about green marketing claims. They want to see proof that organisations are truly committed to tackling environmental and societal challenges. Using standards can help organisations to save energy, save money and save the environment, and also to demonstrate their sustainability credentials to customers, employees and stakeholders, and in particular, their commitment to sustainable production and development. This episode of the series features circular computing and the issue of waste management. Since its foundation 25 years ago, circular computing has had a clear objective: to create a more ethical, sustainable and socially responsible way to buy IT. Its mission is to remanufacture a laptop to like-new condition, not only improving the cosmetics of the product, but also the performance and reliability too. And the voice you heard at the top of the episode was that of Steve Haskew, or Circular Steve, as he's more commonly known, of circular computing, talking about what sustainability means to them. I spoke to Steve about the company's overall approach to using standards, but also in particular the BSI Kitemark for remanufactured and reconditioned products. Circular Computing is the world's first BSI Kitemark certified company for laptop remanufacturing. Now, given that Steve is also a standards maker, working on standards for the reduction of environmental impacts in product design and development, and it's the Standards Show, I asked him all about his standards journey. Before we hear more from Steve, a reminder that you can subscribe to the Standards Show wherever you get your podcasts. And you can find and follow us on social media too. All of the details are in the show notes. The show notes is also where you can find links to some of the content featured in this episode and the link to the other episodes in this series. So, Steve Haskew is Director of Sustainability at Circular Computing, which is based in Portsmouth in the UK. I started by asking Steve to tell me more about the company.
Circular Computing is part of a bigger company that is 30 years old, and we've been around as a parent to remarket technology, mainly laptops, into what is known as the aftermarket. The brand itself is a brand that was born off the back of a paradigm shift in the industry. I think it's as important to understand why we exist. The state of the IT industry, and our little slice of that is within laptop technology, started in around about 1990. We came into it in about 1993. So when big organizations wanted to refresh their hardware to more powerful machines, the industry was led by software development, it being more power hungry. Hardware was then made to consume that software, so it became more powerful, meaning that as an organization, you would lose a competitive edge if your machines weren't able to use the most up-to-date software. So this kind of created a linear cycle. So 3 to 4 years became the norm to refresh your IT. And things haven't changed really since that time for 25 years. As an organisation, our parent company, its job was to take the redundant and unwanted product off the desk of big business. It would do something to it, and then it would sell it into other markets globally, and that product would generally be called refurbished. And there's no way that the large white-collar users or the public sector could buy such a product because of the risk of the quality risk associated with a refurbished product. It's not uniform, and particularly in mobile technology where one product is different to the next product. The paradigm shift came in about 2013-14, and we identified it as this, that the relationship between hardware and software changed, where cloud technology and off-premises storage became mainstream, and it was all about how the software could become more efficient in the delivery of its data onto a piece of hardware. And that hardware could be a laptop, a desktop, a mobile phone, or a tablet. They all pretty much do the same job. It's just about what the user wants to use to create output, if you like. So laptop technology for the most people in the offices is what they would use, but you can do the same job on a different device. The problem was that society didn't change its buying behavior. It was still refreshing every 3 to 4 years. So we thought, right, well, we know where volumes of redundant secondhand technology is, because for 20 years we've been doing that job, as in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of devices. Can we make the product new again? And if we did, would the market be different? In other words, could we sell that product that might be 3 years old, but it's been remade but brand new, back to a different client, which would be the public sector or big industry? And that kind of began our journey, and circular computing was born off the back of us making an all-in commitment to build a remanufacturing factory. We wanted a brand that could represent what we were doing, which was a circular economy-based product. And circular computing was born off the ground that we found that we could remake a machine, and that is called remanufacturing, and that comes with a whole host of other things, because that word doesn't exist in society. So not only do we have a product that no one thinks that they can buy, the thinking is secondhand is second best, but also remanufactured doesn't belong in their arsenal of words. So we have to educate the market about what that means.
Now, you talked there, Steve, about some sort of new words to the language, and also about this paradigm shift, which I'm really interested in. So another term that we are now using, commonplace now, is this issue around sustainability itself. And I guess there's been a paradigm shift in the use of that term. We were talking about it in, not many people talking about it, 10, 15 years ago, and now it seems to be that everyone is talking about it. But it's still, I think, still a controversial term. It's maybe problematic for some people. So I'm interested in what it means for you as circular computing. What does sustainability mean for circular computing?
I think that's an interesting question, because if you typed in sustainability into the Google 10 years ago, you wouldn't have too many places to go to. And because the world's pointing towards that, there are now billions of places to go to. And that also kind of makes confusion for someone who's entering into wanting to learn about it. But for us, we would follow two paths. The first is the natural definition from, say, the Oxford Dictionary, which is the degree to which a process or enterprise is able to be maintained or continued while avoiding the long-term depletion of natural resources. That's what the Oxford Dictionary almost verbatim would say. So if you consume more than is available, and you're not leaving enough behind for next generation, then that is not a sustainable practice, i.e. going overdrawn. But when we focus our mind on what it means to us, we try to kind of figure out how we align to society. And I think like this: 31% of all greenhouse gas emissions, if you listen to the scientists, come from the making of stuff. And that includes electric vehicles and solar and wind and hydro and all the other things that you need to build out green. But from the factory, and steel and cement, by the way, the nasties, so it's over there. But IT sits in the making of stuff, which is the largest slice of greenhouse gas emissions. So if it's true that 31% of all greenhouse gas emissions comes from the factories, the making of stuff, then reducing that is the biggest impact that as a society we can make. Now, the circular economy is at the center of helping that reduction, because we're taking products that have already been made and extending that life, being regenerative, and zeroing out waste. So if it's true that circular economy is at the center of a decarbonized future state, and remanufacturing is at the center of the circular economy, then within our piece, we believe that circular computing is at the heart of the remanufacturing industry within the circular economy for a decarbonized future state. And it's all kind of interconnecting.
I suppose, and you've had that. It's the heart of your organisation here. So it's in a sense that if you are living and breathing a sustainable approach. Do you have any specific sustainability goals at all?
We do. As a business, we've been. So the challenge is for any business is to grow your commercial interests whilst at the same time reducing your carbon footprint, if you look at carbon as a whole. So that's a challenge, and that's something that we were very mindful of. So in 2017, when we built circular computing out, it was a case of fine, okay, well, we need to understand as a business what our own carbon footprint is. So we've been audited annually for our carbon emissions since 2017. So we have a baseline year. So our job is to increase our sales output, our production output in terms of laptops, so number of laptops sold, whilst reducing the cost per laptop. And we measure our carbon footprint in how much carbon does it cost to produce a laptop, and keeping that number down is how we measure that. So carbon, we have a zero waste policy anyway, zero to landfill. All of the technology that is beyond economic repair, for instance, will get repurposed. So a motherboard, if it can't be repaired or it's beyond economic repair, will get crushed and be made into pallets for logistics companies, for instance. But the one thing that we've learned is that working collaboratively with suppliers that have a very similar vibe, if you like, to you with regards to sustainability is the way that you're going to get your own carbon footprint down. And that for us is working with logistics partners who are going to use, say, sustainable aviation fuel, or with customers that are happy to wait a longer period of time for delivery because we're going to move our product from our factory by sea. So as an organisation, we're really on it, and I think carbon is at the heart of everything, but everything else spins off the back of that conversation.
Now, Steve, given that this is the Standards Show, I do want to ask you about your overall approach to using standards and some specific standards in particular. But before I get to that, you talk there about partners and sort of relationships. Tell us about your overall relationship with BSI, and also, how BSI supported you in achieving those sustainability goals you talked about.
So BSI BSI to me personally is super important. When we moved from being just a volume trader of secondhand products into investing big money for us anyway, big money into building a remanufacturing factory, we had to start upping the ante with regards to accreditations and compliance for the benefit of our customers. Otherwise, what we're coming to market with is it's circular, Steve, saying it's a remanufactured product, which is far better than a refurbished product. We needed something and somebody to help us make the difference. So I got involved with BSI in a personal way, in trying to understand what they were trying to achieve with a very specific piece of work. But what the relationship actually is with BSI is one of a paternal relationship. If you think about a transactional analysis between parent child and parent adult, I see BSI as a paternal place. Somebody who I'd go to, say, David Attenborough and talk about what he does with his authority. And he would give me advice, but he wouldn't show me how to do the work. He would just tell me the advice. And the same can be said for BSI. They're not going to give it to you on a plate, but they'll give you the best advice and ask you to get there on your own accord. And by so doing, you're getting best advice and knowledge from people that know how to do what they do, and then put that to practice in your own organisation. And actually, a really interesting thing happened. BSI being the advisor, being the owner of the accreditation, actually not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk. They have become a circular computing partner, so they buy our product for their own use internally, operationally. Such is their confidence in the output of the product. So ultimately, we have this collaborative agreement psychologically, I suppose, where they're a client and supplier all at the same time, and advisor. So it's a really interesting relationship.
Now, Steve, I mentioned earlier I want to talk to you about standards. So, circular computing then, what's your, as an organisation, what's your overall approach to using national and international standards?
We need to set ourselves a bar from which we can be measured by our customers ultimately. The customer needs to know that the organisation that they're engaging with is not a wolf in sheep's clothing, for want of a better phrase. It relies on a standards authority. So on the one hand, we'll have ISO 9001 and ISO 14001, which I think 14001 was started life as a BSI standard anyway.
It did indeed.
So we have those, so the client knows we have quality management systems, we have environmental measures and standards in place. We also have the same with occupational health and safety and so forth. So organizationally, we try to make sure that we can do our job compliantly without working in a commercial half Nelson, if that makes sense.
So, Steve, you mentioned there a number of international management system standards. I just wonder, as an organisation, if you're looking to improve the performance of how you operate, really, how does circular computing approach the use of international standards in that way?
I think the standards that are coming through are really interesting, but particularly with regards to things like governance and helping other parts of business build. I think from our point of view, when we look to change a process within our factory, for instance, we have our ISO standards, but where we are working with BSI, specifically with our Kitemark, which is unique to the organization, we're audited every 6 months. So that looks like they come in, they audit, they then give us things that we need to change. They come back and re-audit, and before you know it, they're auditing again. So for us, it's a constant betterment of our systems, which is ultimately a reflection of the product quality.
Do you want to help make people's lives easier, safer, and more enjoyable? Well, why not become a standards maker and have your say on the development of standards? Standards affect all of us every day, wherever we go, whatever we do. By defining good practice, they help people, organizations, the economy, and society to do things better. Each year, standards bodies publish thousands of standards, and we are looking for more people like you to join our community of standards makers. We welcome applicants from all fields, backgrounds, and career stages. Our goal is to have a balance of views around the table. By becoming a standards maker, you could help to create cities that boost people's well-being, make strides in stem cell research, build more diverse workplaces, and even make the most reliable and sustainable products. So, if you want to make a difference and shape the world through standards, start your standards making journey now. Simply visit bsigroup.com/get involved.
Now, Steve, I just want to ask you about one particular standard, or a Kitemark, in fact. And obviously, it's completely related to the product that you're developing here. What drove you to achieve the BSI Kitemark for remanufactured and reconditioned products? And I suppose just as much, well, even more importantly, what benefits have you seen since achieving it?
So with laptop products, especially with laptop products, the behavior of every laptop in its original life is different to your neighbors or your partners or anybody else in the organization. So when you're remaking the product back to a new state, which is what the standard for remanufacturing is, and it's called BS 8887, British Standards 8887, and there are variants of that, which is remanufactured is one, which is 240, I believe, and then reconditioned is BS 8887 220, I think, or the other way around. But ultimately, we needed two things. We needed the discipline to be the best version of ourselves, and the BS 8887 Kitemark for remanufactured makes us do that. So making something back equal to or better than the original is a very difficult job if you don't have the blueprints of the original manufacturer. So that's a very hard job to do, and we're the only one in the world to have that. So without the Kitemark, we're just a better version of really good refurbished or reconditioned. That's really important for our customers. They're able to, particularly in the public sector, they can say with confidence, we want to buy a remanufactured product that has and they would frame it with a third-party accreditation that specifies that it must be equal to or better than new. That's what the Kitemark does. It allows our customers in our market to specify our products because of the Kitemark. We've had the refurbished and reconditioned Kitemark alongside that because we actually do a different job for that. But the other part of that coin, and we have a conversation with BSI at the top table at the moment going on, which is, okay, so I've got a Kitemark, BS 8887 Kitemark for refurbished, and there are 2 or 3 other people in the market that also have that. But the condition of our product that comes out of our factory with our Kitemark is much better, we believe, than the other products offering the same Kitemark. But the customer doesn't know about that. So an aggregator might buy 1,000 from me, 50 from somebody else, and 50 from somebody else, and the buyer might think they're getting all the same product when in fact they're not. They're getting 3 variants of the product. Ultimately, though, Matthew, the second-hand market is a seller's market. It's not a buyer's market. And what the Kitemark does for remanufacturing, it puts the power of product risk and assurance into the hands of the buyer, not at the bequest of the seller.
Listening to you speak there, I mean, how big a game changer is this Kitemark for the sector?
Well, we're doing some work with our government at the moment. They're saying we reckon there's 12.5% to 20% of our estate could go to remanufactured if the output of what you're telling me is a reduction in carbon emissions, which benefits our net zero ambition. You're zeroing out e-waste, which is part of our strategy. We're entering a circular economy, so we're preserving resources, and that forms part of our overarching mineral and rare earth strategy. If you're achieving those, and you're less expensive than the new, this for us is a game changer, and that only comes by because we've got a Kitemark. It doesn't come by because Circular Steve says they're the best second-hand products on the market.
So, Steve, you called yourself Circular Steve there, which I think is fantastic. And you mentioned obviously the circular economy. This is the sort of bigger picture of what we're talking about here today. I just wonder you mentioned there the general public and putting power back in the hands of consumers. I just wonder what's the wider story here. What else can people play in the issues around waste management and the circular economy? Can we have more? How do we have more circular Steves, Stephanies, and other names beginning with S?
I think that if we think about the circular economy, we must firstly zero out waste. There must be no word in the English language that is called waste. We talk about that particular word as next gen resources. Everything is possible to be remade if the processes are in place to do that, but it requires a behavior change from the consumer. One must start thinking about not buying a refurbished phone but big business must be thinking, if you look to the United Nations, and I'll say this, but it's part of Circular Steve bingo. There's something called the SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals, which is the 17 things that help people focus their minds about doing positive change to eliminate poverty and inequality and things like that. And one of them is number 12, which is sustainable production and consumption. So we don't think the circular economy is waste management. We just think it's an economy that makes the best use of resources. It's regenerative, it zeroes out waste, and it keeps product alive for as long as it possibly can. But it's having the trust of the customer is super important, because without that, then you're not being the best version of yourself. So, like BSI, we have wonderful clients that are really vocal about what they're trying to achieve from the C-suite. They're looking to help with net zero. They're looking to be better people at leading their own organizations. And they're prepared to work hard with us to make sure that happens from an IT perspective. And then what happens is change happens internally for their organization. The IT person, whose job it is to keep the wheels on the bus operationally, never gets thanked for spending millions of pounds every year, and only gets kicked when the wheels of the bus fall off. Well, what this person is now able to do is to go, I've understood your ambition to net zero, for instance, as a C-suite, and you want to leave a legacy and your own footprint on this business. I have delivered that for you. Did you know, like, just three brand new laptops emits a ton of CO2, which is just a number. Doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people. Well, a ton of CO2 is 19,000 cubic feet, which now it's becoming something. And 19,000 cubic feet is plus or minus the size of a 3-bedroom house in air mass. So every time that house replaces or changes its IT for a brand new piece of laptop, it will emit its air mass up to the atmosphere, which obviously creates a blanketing effect, and the sun's rays can't escape the atmosphere, and it heats the globe. Once you understand the story and you kind of go, okay, well, if it is possible, and from an assurance and quality point of view, I'm not at risk, and I save money, then why wouldn't I do that? Actually, why wouldn't I do that? And that's the story that comes through. And as I say, our clients work hard, being reference sites for us, working to actually make change. This is not about greenwashing. This is actually people rolling their sleeves up and going, no, we're all in. If what you're saying you can deliver, and you can evidence it. So when we talk about carbon and things like that, we've worked with people like Brunel University for our water, because we have a big water preservation. With our carbon, we're audited anyway by an independent, and we work with Cranfield University. A resource preservation, we're working with some international universities to have a look at what makes a laptop. It's complicated, but we don't. It's not just circular Steve running around going, it's a really great thing. This is actually really grown up, meaningful things that, when presented in the right way, means that the only option really is to explore it. And going back to the Kitemark, without that, we're just another snake oil salesman.
So, Steve, what's next for circular computing and sustainability?
We're working hard with central government, mainly in the UK, also in Europe. We have decided to make the choice of bringing something to market that we think is an absolute game changer, which is what we're calling remanufacturing as a service. So it kind of looks like, imagine if you have a car and you use it for 3 years and you don't service it, it's kind of not going to be roadworthy, which is why you have an annual MOT. What we found actually is that we're able to take clients' laptops and remanufacture them and then put them back into their own estate. So at the moment, customers can come to me and say, I want to buy HP Dell Lenovo, and I give them a selection from our own sort of library, and they can say, I want those. But if they're happy with their existing estate, but because a laptop gets hit millions of times a year, it just needs to be brought back to a new condition, then they can give us their estate to remanufacture and put back into their own building. That then is a huge game changer, and the mathematics actually will probably look like 4 million laptops in the public sector. Let's say the public sector is funded by our money. If 50% of them have a laptop, that's 2 million laptops, and let's say the average cost of a laptop is a £1,000 or something like that. Then you're looking at a spend of 2 billion quid every 3 years for laptops. So if you're able to remanufacture what's already been bought, and you can come in at 20% of the cost, all of a sudden you're not spending 2 billion, you're spending 400 million. And net saving 1.6 billion can be used for society to create more well-being or to do better things with. So it's not just about the waste element. So if you think about e-waste, it's not about the physical waste. It's about the physical waste of taxpayers' money year on year on year. And if we can break that, and I think we are in a position where we're quite close to breaking that. We've got the people who want to break it, but it's complicated. Then we're able to create a really a circular economy, a circular government. And once we've got that template figured out, then that's something that then can be rolled out geographically across the rest of Europe to participating countries like Belgium and the Netherlands. Scandinavian countries are very kind of they're not first mover other than Denmark, who are working very closely with us. But remanufacturing as a service could be the thing that actually kind of changes things, because the financial motivation is really there.
Now, Steve, you are a standards maker too, so I'm really keen to know, what's been your personal standards journey? How and when did it start for you, and where are you now?
My standards journey started in 2016, 2017. I was very kind of green behind the ears. I'm on a committee that looks at it's called TDW4, Technical Drawings Working Group 4. It looks at manufacture, so it's called the MADE is the acronym. So manufacture, assembly, disassembly, and end of life. It looks at those four things. And of course, I always looked at the end of life as being the thing that was of most interest. But actually, we were kind of fairly strong in that pillar, and it made me think differently about how things are designed. So I've just been to London this week to Clerkenwell Design Week, speaking to the most imaginative designers, predominantly within the architecture and furniture businesses, which is where I kind of have an interest. And just talking to them about what they're doing to change how they're actually designing at the front end for things to be made. They're designing for things to be unmade first. So their thoughts around how they make things are changing. And so my own thoughts within what BSI have helped me understand is really deconstructing production and consumption in a kind of a mental mind map, if you like, and having real clarity of thought about things I didn't understand. I find myself fascinated personally now about the periodic table, and it's a big part of one of the presentations I do about how we're really kind of the tipping point about negligent resource use, and having this linear sort of behavior towards consumption will ultimately mean that we're going to run out of things because we're not looking after what's already been made. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is to have a circular economy. So I use my learnings within my BSI working groups, which is all self-funded. It's purely a selfish thing, and the cost is part of my own sort of professional, bettering my own knowledge. But it helps me speak about the themes that I'm really passionate about in a more kind of confident way. In my working group are people from, I don't know, Rolls-Royce are there, so I have no knowledge about what they do and how they make. I know what they do make, but but the challenges that they have actually are not too dissimilar from the challenges that we have as a medium-sized enterprise. And obviously they have a brand to protect, and we have a brand to build. Yet the commonality of the circular themes and the sustainability themes within remanufacturing, it all actually centers around the standard. Without the standard, it's just an opinion.
And take us inside if you can. So some of the committees you work on, what sort of conversations are you having, and what's your particular perspective and your contribution? What do you provide to the committee?
I would like to provide more, if I could, but time is short. So the only thing we can obviously control is time. But so with the committee itself, we helped BSI launch and release the 787-220-240 series, so that we, as an organisation, and me as a principal, were able to help BSI get that Kitemark into industry. So that for me is a huge achievement. It was a first for BSI and it was a first for us. So that's a real kind of a win for both of us. I then also work on an international committee on behalf of BSI that involves other countries, including China, who has a big interest in natural resources and the global movement of natural resources. So those things come from two places. They come from the ground, which is the natural resource, and they come from an urban mine, which is a recycling source or a reuse source. So they're interested in trying to get a better feel globally as to what's happening within this market, and try to find innovative ways to work with resources that have come from an urban mine as opposed to a natural mine, in the knowledge that stuff is running out. So when it's all gone, it's all gone. We're going to have to figure out things differently. And the Chinese the Chinese guys are throwing a lot of energy and weight at trying to figure this out for us, because as a global society, we rely upon the brilliance of China, for want of a better phrase. They've got it figured out. They know how to separate and process minerals to make stuff that we consume. But they figured that the stuff that they currently process for us to consume is going to run out. So they're trying to figure out how to keep us consumed, if you see what I mean, but in a more circular fashion. So my eyes are being opened over there as well.
If you're at the start of your career and thinking about getting involved with standards and seeing it as a professional development exercise, really, what would you say to that? And how is it important to have that younger professional voice around the committee table?
100% that's important. And the reason it's important is that just say Gen Z, I was born in the 60s, and I have a blueprint. Unfortunately, I've got a way that I think based on a set of predefined things that probably been fed down to me by my parents. And it's important to get the thoughts of youth into the conversation early, because ultimately, from a standards perspective, they're the ones that are going to be holding the baton a little bit further upstream. So it's important from a professional development. I would suggest that if someone's looking to get into standards, and they're doing it for the right reasons, that professional development is a part of the conversation.
My thanks to Steve Haskew, aka Circular Steve, of Circular Computing, for sharing with me their sustainability success story. A reminder that for more information on some of the content featured in this episode, including details of the BSI Kitemark for remanufactured products and how to get involved with standards, just like Steve, then check out the links in the show notes.
You have been listening to Sustainability Success, a series from The Standard Show. Subscribe to The Standard Show now, wherever you get your podcasts.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.